morning, everybody. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. Life got crazy, life gets busy as it often does, and sometimes we forget about doing some of the things that are important to us. What a time to be alive, right? I think the best summary of everything that's going on right now was something I saw on my news feed that said, "Man, what a year this week has been." A lot has happened, and I'm not gonna waste time rehashing all of it because we get enough of that on the news, on our feeds, on YouTube, all over the place. You can't go anywhere without somebody talking about this stupid virus. But all the chaos that's been going on has gotten me thinking a lot about the concept of fear and what it does to a person. I remember, this is getting further and further back, but I think I was just going into junior high, and the junior high group at my church was going to go on a whitewater rafting trip. And I had been rafting once or twice as a kid, and I really enjoyed it, and so I asked my parents if I could go, and my dad agreed to come along and help chaperone, which was awesome. And, little 6th grade me, wide-eyed and happy and bushy-tailed, walking into a group of all these high schoolers, and I very quickly determined that the way that I viewed the world and the values that I held were different from the people around me, which was fine. It was just something that I noticed. But where that became particularly obvious was when we got to the river. And before we got in the raft, the guides gave us a safety briefing. And I paid very careful attention to that safety briefing. And in that briefing, they talked about what to do in the event of emergency. What do you do if you fall off the raft? What do you do if you're injured? What do you do if you get lost? I mean, they're small, little tidbits of information, but they were all incredibly important. And I remember looking at my dad going, are we going to fall off the raft? And my dad said, probably not. But it's good to know what to do if you do fall off the raft. And I looked at him and said, I'm afraid. I'm scared because before I got here, I didn't think it was possible to fall off the raft. But now I'm hearing that it is possible, it does happen, and people are telling you what to do about it. And this is one of the pieces of wisdom that my dad passed on to me. He looked at me and he said, to fear is natural. To overcome fear is supernatural. And that stuck with me. It stuck with me throughout that rafting trip, and it stuck with me to this very day. It's a good thing that it stuck with me during that rafting trip because, I ended up needing that information. I'll just put it that way. Right now, everybody is scared. And you know what? It's okay to be scared. There's a lot of people in our lives and in our media that are actually shaming us for being scared. You should be ashamed of yourself. You bought one too many rolls of toilet paper. You should be ashamed of yourself. You didn't leave that last package of spaghetti for the elderly. And there's good points to be had all around. I'm not, I'm not trying to make a commentary on everything that's been happening. What I'm saying is that being scared is okay. And I think that's something a lot of us have forgotten. It is natural to be scared. Fear is what alerts us to the fact that there's possible danger. But what's not okay is giving in to the fear. Overcoming that fear is what makes us more than just animals, more than just natural. The quote that's been going around my house recently comes from the book Dune. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. I will face my fear. I will let it pass through me. And when the fear is gone, only I shall remain. I guess if I had an encouragement for you today, it would be to let your fear pass through you and make sure that when the fear is gone, only you remain. And that's not an easy thing to do. Our world is full of stories of great heroes that faced incredible odds. What a lot of times those stories don't tell us is that those heroes were afraid. I can't think of a single hero that did not look up at their monster or at their giant and feel fear. But what I do know is that they faced their fear. During that fateful rafting trip, I did get thrown out of the raft. The snow had been melting, and there were small chunks along that river that were actually up to Class 4 rapids, which is just shy of don't go on the river. And we hit one of those swells at exactly the wrong angle, and I got thrown out of the boat. Let me tell you, I was scared. I was terrified. I don't know if I've ever been that scared. That was in my top 5 most terrified moments. But I remembered what the guide said. I laid back. I let the life vest buoy me up and help me float. I put my feet in front of me so that I could push off of obstacles. And I didn't try to stand up, because if you try to stand up, the current will knock you over, put your head under the water, and you won't be able to breathe. And this is where I figured out that I was different from a lot of the other people that I was with that day, because the way they tell the story, 2 of my acquaintances that were on that trip had likewise gotten thrown off the raft. And they did what I think a lot of people right now are doing. They ignored the instructions of the guide. They panicked. They clung to each other and were trying to get on top and be the one high up, and they were screaming and they were yelling at each other and just complete panicking. And then as the story goes, they both have this surreal moment where they stop, and they look over at me, and by their description, I am just cool as a cucumber, just calmly floating down the river, not doing anything at all. And they kind of looked at each other and then went back to panicking. Now, in my head, I was terrified. But I remembered what I was taught, and I stayed the course, and I kept my feet pointed forward, and I kept moving. And I got far enough down the river where there was a calm spot, and one of the other rafts found me and pulled me on board, and I was safe. Stay the course, guys. Put your feet in front of you. Follow the advice of the people that are actually giving good advice, and let your fear pass through you. Don't panic, but don't feel shame because you're afraid.